Delegates, we're about to commence our panel section now, conversational style. This arises from the hustings, where people were very impressed by the question and answer style that was adopted and the interactive approach, and certainly also the input that was available for members through questions. This morning's session will be based on questions from the members here and will be hosted by Nora Casey, independent moderator, and there will be 3 panels over the course of the morning, and this will be all televised on RTE. And I want to ask now for Minister Alex White, Minister for Communications, Energy and Natural Resources, to address conference on Labour's track record in delivering economic recovery.
Thank you, Lorraine, and good morning, everybody. Labour is about creating solid, fulfilling and sustainable jobs. 90,000 new jobs since 2011. Unemployment down from over 15% to 10% and falling now in every region of our country. But it is time to think about jobs and employment prospects in new ways. And this is a real challenge for Social Democrats looking to the future. In the digital economy that is now evolving so rapidly, ICT has become much more than just a sector of our economy. Instead, digital is now the bedrock of the entire economy and all the jobs that it sustains. It's creating opportunities in and synergies between all sectors, from manufacturing, energy and agriculture, to education, services, and practically everything in our economy. Our active industrial policy, our position at the heart of Europe and international trade, our high educational standards, and our skilled workforce have convinced the likes of Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn to establish their European bases here. Just this week, Apple announced its decision to invest an €850 million data centre, not in Dublin, not in Cork, but in Lorraine Higgins' hometown in Athenry, County Galway. We need to lever this inward investment to support strong, innovative and employment-rich ICT, with spin-offs and startups from our universities and colleges and the Digital Hub. These are the jobs of the future. People who will stay here in this country to build good careers and lives for themselves and their families, ensuring through their contribution that we have the resources to sustain a just and equitable society through strong public services and supports for citizens who need them. We are realists. We know that delivering these opportunities is not easy against the background of a sluggish global recovery and intense international competition. It requires enhanced public investment in education, training, and essential infrastructure. It requires the confidence to support appropriate private investment strategies. Above all, it requires a government with a practical focus on job creation and a proven record on sound economic management and the creation of stability. To risk that stability now, after all our sacrifice and hard work as a nation, literally would be to risk all we have achieved on jobs and on growth. It would put at risk our ambitions for ourselves, our communities, and our children. That is why we need Labour to be in government, now and after the next general election, to carry forward the construction of a sound economy with solid infrastructure, to invest in high-quality broadband and ensure that every citizen of this country has an equal opportunity to participate in a sustainable economy, one that serves us and not the other way around. To reform and expand our education and training system. That's how you deliver opportunity. To build a sustainable energy system that brings security and affordability to homes and businesses. To have strong and well-funded public services, health, childcare, public transport. These are the supports and the opportunities our citizens need to have in order to have fulfilling, healthy and productive lives. So that work is a means to an end. This is Labour's message of hope and opportunity in a world of uncertainty and rapid change. A message that we are the party of work and the party of opportunity. That is our task, and we are well up to the fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Alex White. Well, good morning and a very warm welcome to everyone at home and all of you here in the main hall at the INEC in Killarney to this live transmission from the 2015 Labour Party National Conference. Well, I'm Nora Casey. I'm in the hot seat, moderating a quite wide-ranging conversation this morning with ministers, senators, TDs, members of the Labour Party. We're going to be tackling some issues at the very heart of the people of Ireland. So we'll be talking about, I guess, driving economic growth, creating jobs, equality, that's high on the agenda today, how we can raise the standard of living for everyone in Ireland, not just for the few. The questions will be put from members here in the hall, and I'll be making sure my job is to pin them to collar and make sure that they answer the questions. Did I mention I used to be a dragon? I'm really nice now, though. But you can take part at home as well, because we are on Twitter. Our hashtags are hashtag LP15 and hashtag Opportunity2016. So you can hashtag with either of them, hashtag LP15. So we're going to turn first to driving growth and creating jobs. And joining me here on the stage are Ministers Brendan Howlin, Alex White and Anne Phelan, Deputies Derek Nolan, Arthur Spring and Eric Byrne, Senators John Gilroy and Lorraine Higgins, by-election candidate William Quinn, and finally, but not least, Labour Youth Chair Jack Eustace. So let's get started. Let's get down to business. We'll take as many questions as we possibly can from the hall, but the first is from Councillor Alison Gilliland from Dublin Bay North. Alison, your question, please.
Thank you, Nora. While the economy grew dramatically last year and the same as expected this year, isn't a lot of our recovery too dependent on exports, particularly given the volatility of the global market? So with this in mind, and very cognizant of the need to promote decent work and wages, what's the Labour Party going to do to support and boost the domestic economy at local level, particularly among small businesses and for those workers moving from unemployment into self-employment?
Okay, thank you, Alison. So it's about the domestic economy and whether or not, I suppose I'm going to start with you, Brendan Howlin. I guess at a macro level, people hear yourself and Michael Noonan talking about the recovery and all of the deals that were struck and how well we're doing. However, it does feel sometimes there's many shades of recovery in Ireland, and I think what Alison was referring to there is it does feel a little bit like the domestic economy is flat.
Well, obviously exports are extremely important, and we have historic high exports and they're sustaining an awful lot of jobs. But the key to impacting in people's pockets and families' pockets is to have the SME sector boosted. I spent much of Thursday with Arthur Spring meeting the SMEs here in Kerry because I think it's important to hear firsthand what they want. And when I say SMEs, I'm including farmers who are small enterprises as well. And two overarching requests came from SMEs to government. One is access to affordable finance, and second, access to the skill set that they need right now. So what are we doing about that? In terms of access to affordable money, we launched the funds last week, the Strategic Investment Bank, a long-held Labour ideal, and I think that is a game changer. That's what was said by the SMEs themselves when we launched it. It was said by the head of the IFA when we launched it. And I think it will change the way lending happens.
Minister, can I just say,
sure.
So I travelled around the country with the takeover, visiting small businesses all over Ireland, and they would say, despite many government initiatives for them to access finance, they still find it incredibly difficult.
We did a survey last year just in terms of that, and one of the things that I found most shocking about the survey is the lack of awareness of many of the schemes the government was providing. So maybe we're providing too many and not communicating well enough. And that's why the LEOs are doing a much better job now at communicating what's on offer.
The local enterprise offices.
Yeah, and the second big issue was surprising, and it's going to become more acute, access to the skill sets that are needed. And that's why we have transformed the Department of Social Protection into a Department of Job Facilitation through Intreo, a bespoke solution for people to get the skills they need to find jobs in their locality.
Are all the intros open now?
Almost all. There has been obviously an issue of finding suitable premises, because we don't want to have people communicating behind glass. You sit down, talk one-on-one to people that will facilitate you into a job. And the final bit, obviously, is the ETBs. The Education and Training Boards, with Solace, are now looking at their own community, finding what are the skill sets that are available, that are required in this area, and then providing the training so that we can get seamlessly. There's no point in training people in skills that the economy doesn't require.
Brendan, I'm going to go to one of the deputies now in a second, but I wanted just the short answer, I suppose, about the domestic economy. What's your sense about growth this year?
Well, I mean, we're going to have the highest growth in the European Union this year, at least 4%, and I think that's probably an underestimate. I was in Brussels this week, and people are marvelled at our recovery. But economic growth is a number. It has to manifest itself in the quality of life of people, and that's our task this year.
And that's the issue. Derek Nolan, all the way down there, can I go to you actually? Because when I talked about different shades of recovery, you're in Galway. I was there a few weeks ago doing the Skull Enterprise Awards, incredible number of startups. But what does it feel like on the ground?
Well, the way we judge it in Galway is not by how many people are walking on Shop Street, but how many people have bags and actually shopping in Shop Street.
Yeah.
And that's really started to turn in the last number of months. Businesses have seen a bit more confidence creeping in. They've seen that people have a bit more money in their pocket. And I think some of the measures, although they were small in the budget, just to tell people, that we're not going to take more money out of your pocket this year, that, the cuts are over, that, austerity is over. People are feeling a bit more
Derek, how
confident.
is shopping in Shop Street?
How is shopping in Shop
Yeah.
Street? Oh,
I didn't get a chance when I was down there, but are people out there? Are they walking the streets on a Saturday?
They are. I mean, some of the local businesses, like all towns, Galway has a mixture of some really old, great Galway businesses and the new modern chain outlets. I think it is improving. I mean, Councillor Ian McNeilis, who's a shop owner and a shop runner from the Labour Party in Galway, will tell you that things are picking up a little bit and that, people are actually going in and spending a bit of time. And instead of just looking and walking out and maybe having a cup of coffee in town, they're actually buying, a few things. And
actually moving from Galway to Cork, actually, Senator John Gilroy, so the People's Republic, Ireland's second capital.
The real capital.
The real capital, and we're sitting in the kingdom. What are the magic ingredients that you need to put in place to make that city thriving, to bring in the infrastructure, to make people in Cork really feel they're part of that booming economy that Brendan Howland talks about?
Yeah, I suppose what we need to get right is a balance between investment in our local economy and our SMEs, and also to attract more foreign direct investment in. We can see on the north side of Cork City, we have Apple, for instance, and they're a major employer in Cork, employing 1,000 people. They're key drivers of the local economy, as well as being world players. We see the investment in Galway that Apple have announced during the week, and this is the sort of thing that we have to compete with. We're very good at competing. We're damn good at competing for foreign direct investment, and we have to keep doing that. The foreign direct investment companies are investing about 13 billion euros a year.
Do you get enough of it in Cork?
Pardon?
Do you get enough of it?
Yeah, we never get enough of it. We'll never be happy. We want all of it, of course. But no,
Lorraine Higgins is sitting in front of you. She has something to say about that. I think we'll just catch another question, actually, and then we'll move back to the panel again. So the next question is actually Councillor Peter O'Brien. He's a question about unemployment amongst young people and other groups. Peter, thank you.
Thank you. I'm a full-time community worker with Southside Partnership, and every day of my life, of my working life, I see the scars and effects that unemployment have on people's lives. Now, since Labour have went into government, there has been significant change. We've seen 31 months of consecutive job growths, unemployment's at its lowest rate at 10.3% since 2009. But saying that, there are still significant pockets of high unemployment, and I see it every day, particularly among young people and people within the construction industry. And I'd like to know what we can do to change that for a positive effect.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So probably I'll go straight to you, Minister Alex White. I mean, he's talking about there is obviously improvements in unemployment, further expected this year, but in very key groups amongst young people and construction workers, there's still very significant unemployment.
No, I think Peter makes a great point, and I think, if you just look back over the last week, it occurred to me, and it may have occurred to other people, when we had those job losses in Cadbury's, 220 jobs were mentioned there as possibly being at risk, and the government will be doing everything, obviously, to support the workers and to work with the trade unions. But then the very next day, there were 225 jobs announced, created in the country in Airbnb and in another employer. Digitally based, really, what I was making the point is earlier on about the digital economy. There's a transformation coming and a big migration away from traditional manufacturing into a completely new type of economy.
But does that help construction workers?
I think it will. No, well, I think it will change the nature of work for a lot of people who did work in construction. I mean, we've got. I recently was in a college in my own constituency, the Slorgan College of Further Education, where you had a lot of people there, and it's not easy. You know, you've worked for 20 years in construction or finance, for example, and you're being asked to retrain. It's a hard thing for somebody in a family, but we need to encourage people and work with people to do that. And I think that will help transform, because we've got a different expectation of what kind of work there's going to be in this economy, and we need to make sure that we do that. I can make one other point about apprenticeships, because this comes back to the young people, and it's absolutely younger people. One of the nicest things I did since Christmas was sit on the back of an Eircom truck or an Eircom van outside Leinster House with the chief executive of Eircom announcing 300 apprenticeships in that company. The same thing happened this week in the ESB, 300 apprentices. Right?
Are we moving towards a more apprenticeship type model?
Absolutely, and they're real jobs. The thing about apprenticeship, well, back to exactly the model that we did have of apprenticeships is returning, and it has to, because there was a young woman there, and I'll tweet a photograph of her in a minute. There she is with an apprenticeship with real confidence in her future now. She's going to get proper training, high quality training, and a job for the future. Now, Peter is right. These developments are only starting, but that's what it's going to be about. And I think we need partly to change our mindset to, yes, we have to create jobs, work with the private sector, but they will be different kinds of jobs. Yeah. And I think we all need to get our heads around that. I think we are doing so, and I think a lot of the work the government is doing at the moment points to those kind of developments.
Keep your tweets coming in, by the way, hashtag LP15, just that you mentioned Twitter, and I've encouraged everybody on stage, don't think they're being rude, to bring their iPads and to tweet and to take part in the conversation. Eric, can I come to you, because you're in a constituency that has high unemployment. You know, you've got areas like Crumlin and Ballyfermot, but you also have, potentially, touch wood, the new children's hospital coming in your area.
Yes, we have, well, as you know, we have the Our Lady's Hospital for Sick Children in Crumlin, but we're going to build this massive 650 million euro project, which is the National Tertiary Paediatric Hospital. Can I say, as a construction worker myself, I want to say that it is very obvious, and it's delightful to see the cranes appearing on the skyline throughout the country. It's fascinating to see all the hard hat workers in their yellow jackets again on the streets in Dublin, mixing it, buying their coffee for takeaway, buying their sandwiches. It is a really encouraging boost. It's very encouraging to everybody to see the construction industry coming back to life. And I think it's as a result of the decisions of this government that targeted the Lewis, targeted DIT in Grange Gorman, and of course our magnificent project, which is about to get off on James's Hospital site, a 650 million euro state-of-the-art hospital. Now, the benefits of that...
When's that going to open, actually?
That project is already on, they're clearing the site. They've already acquired ancillary sites on Davit Road. The work is about to commence. And just to tell you about the unemployment for youth, there's just a delegation just returned from Glasgow to look and see how the community gains from major capital projects like this. The CEO of the development board, the local community development workers, Joe Donoghue from Fatima Groups United, have come back with a plan to create a new concept of community gain. That is where there be local employment created, where there be apprenticeships provided on the site as the site is developed.
Eric, you're very happy, basically, with the developments that are happening within your constituency. You think that the work is coming back for construction workers?
I think, in fairness, we have seen the demise of St. Michael's Estate. We've just demolished sections of Teresa's Gardens. I'm on the board of Dolphin House Development Board. It's going to be redeveloped. So there are wonderful things happening. And the housing stock that's replacing those old flat complexes, I'd encourage any of your viewers to visit Thornton Heights, which is the St. Michael's Estate new development.
Okay.
The private sector wouldn't provide the quality of accommodation that's provided on that site for social housing. So we have our Minister for the Environment with the biggest spend in social housing and house construction is about to commence. So look,
Eric,
for construction workers, just and apprentices.
And I want to move to maybe the other half of the question, because we have Jack Eustace here from Labour Youth, and I suppose 500,000 people have left since 2007, and quite a lot of them are in your age group, graduates, who are expensively trained educated by their parents, by the state, and we've lost them. We've lost their brain power to the economy. So, firstly, how do we get them back home? Or do you think that there are some magic ingredients we need to put in place in order to attract them back here?
Well, I don't think there's any magic ingredients, I would suspect. But yeah, no, an awful lot of people have left. I mean, I've had a lot of my friends leave, and I mean, I'm a middle-class kid from South Dublin. Like, I'm not exactly someone who would be particularly at risk, I guess. But absolutely, these are things that seem to happen everywhere. Historically, it's a big part of Ireland as a country and Ireland as an economy is unfortunately that, partly because we're very small and very open, but also because of policies in the past that we all know about. Our young people have been sent away, and our very talented young people have been sent away.
I suppose, Jack, you know, I'm the same. I have nieces and nephews scattered all over the world, so this year they're all saying we want to come home. So what do you need to do to encourage them to come home? What needs to be here?
I think, well, there's two parts to it. Obviously, there's job creation, which is terribly important, but also something that we can never forget is that it can't just be about Labour as the party of work. It has to be Labour about the party of quality of work. And that's really what's essential. We need to not only have jobs for people to come back to, but quality jobs that people will want to come back to in addition to that. So I think it's really, really important that while there's absolutely has to be a focus on continuing to create jobs, that there's also real action brought in that we're not going towards a kind of what I would suspect would be a more UK situation.
And talk to me about the resolution overwhelmingly carried for full job seeker allowance for the under 26-year-olds.
Yeah, that was the Labour Youth motion passed last night. It's something we felt very strongly.
Do you believe that's important?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if you want
to... And on balance, if you had only one pot of money, and one could be spent on creating jobs for people in that age group and another could be spent on the job seeker allowance, where would you go with it?
Well, I think it's a false dichotomy to say, and I think it really cuts against what Labour is supposed to be about, that spending on welfare is somehow not spending on jobs, it's somehow not spending on people and on developing human capital in the country. I mean, first of all, if you want to attract young people back in the country, you have to treat them as equals and as adults, and that means across the board. That means in all areas.
So, Jack, would you spend it? Which one would you spend it on? I think it's nice, but if you were sitting there and I made you T-shirt tomorrow and you only had one pot of money, where would it go?
I don't think it's a choice, though. I think I would absolutely, if I was in charge, and I hope to see the Labour Party do this, as was endorsed by the conference yesterday, reinstate the full rate of job seekers to people under 26. And I think young people want to work. I think there's this idea sometimes that they don't. There's this idea that, you know, it just maybe when you turn 26, you magically suddenly are a responsible person who wants a job. That's absolute nonsense. Young people want to work.
Of course they do.
And when there's jobs, they take them
What's your sense, Jack, just before we leave you? What's your sense of returners? That does seem to be, it seems to be moving from a steady trickle to a much more significant wave, perhaps, of people coming back into the country.
My sense in terms of...
From your friends and colleagues, are they talking about coming back to Ireland?
Often more as a long-term prospect. I mean, there's different types of people. I mean, the fact that we are such a small country, the fact we're such an open economy, the fact we speak English and stuff, there's always going to be people who go away to kind of develop the kind of skills and go to the kind of countries that they have the opportunity to. So that's part of it as well. And there are people who very much want to come back. Then in terms of people who kind of are more forced away, they absolutely want to come back, and once the opportunities are there, I believe they will.
I think it's helped many mothers and fathers in Ireland learn how to use Skype and FaceTime, certainly in my family. Let's move to another question. And this question on this topic, it comes from Liam Hayes from Fethard in County Tipperary. Over to you, Liam. Thanks.
Thank you. Most of the jobs growth is taking place in the Greater Dublin area and around the other cities. Unfortunately, large parts of rural Ireland, and particularly areas like Slieverde, stretching from Thurles to Killinall, Fethard down to Carrick-on-Shore, are not experiencing a recovery in a significant way. How is Labour going to ensure that jobs and growth are spread into rural areas such as these? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liam. So I suppose that's about that twin-track economy, Minister Anne Phelan. I think everybody talks about the fact that in Dublin you can feel it's the same in the UK. I go to London, I feel it's vibrant, it's alive, and the north of England is dead. It's like a ghost estate. So in Ireland we still have the same problem of this twin-track economy where you can feel in urban areas that there is growth, there is renewal, there is vitality, but in rural areas some of those towns out there are decimated.
Yeah, there is certainly a difficulty in rural areas. The larger urban populations in Ireland are certainly experiencing that recovery. My role was created to make sure that the rural parts of Ireland, that we spread that recovery down into the communities in rural Ireland. I am responsible for the rollout of the Rural Development Programme, which is actually the funding that underpins enterprise and job creation in very, very rural communities, which indeed I come from myself. So, I understand exactly, the difficulties
You're identifying
in
rural
rural
enterprise
Ireland.
zones. Can I put it to you first, though? Before you do, isn't there a danger that the post office is going to be closed, that the Garda station is going to be closed, that the bus route is going to be stopped?
Well, Nora, if I could perhaps point out, that under the Fianna Fáil administration during the Celtic Tiger, more post offices closed than have closed under this administration. So I think, that is something that does need to be pointed out. Now, if I could perhaps give you the example of how we dealt with the situation in the Midlands, where they were going to lose their banking facilities. The community came together and decided that, they weren't going to accept this. So we came up with a protocol. We spoke to the bank. We communicated and consulted with the community to see, how did they themselves, to take the situation into their own hands, to decide on their own destiny. So what they did was, so the bank moved out, but we retained 90% of the banking services. And they also managed to consolidate the services in their post office and in their credit union, which is extremely important to communities as well. And also they inherited the building as well. So there was actually a very significant community gain.
What's the, I can hear that you feel optimistic that you can actually stave off some of the decline, but what's the timetable for CEDRA? So when do you hope to be able to announce these zones and to announce something positive and concrete for people in rural Ireland?
Well, I am responsible for coordinating and energising government supports in rural areas. We will be in a position very, very soon to announce the rollout of the pilot schemes for what's commonly known now as the REDS. That is the Rural Economic Development Zones, where we identify an area that is not doing particularly well. We take down all the supports from government, all the supports from the local authority, put it into a local development strategy that is owned by the community. Because
and how many of those will there be?
They will be rolled out. We will be rolling out these through the local authorities. So every local authority will have its own local development strategy. Yeah, and then we will all come together. We will boil down all those plans that are every community at the moment is devising its own local economic development plan through its local authority. They will all come together. We will boil all of those down into one plan across the county boundary, and that will be the driver for the
Minister,
economic development zones.
I might come back to you. I'm sure you're going to be lobbied quite a bit on that one.
I've been already.
Can I go to Deputy Arthur Springs? So Minister Hallen was saying he spent a bit of time with you, local person, but also a fellow entrepreneur. You have a juice bar in Tralee and you actually employ people, so you know exactly what it feels like out there in rural Ireland to try and, well, maintain jobs and grow your business.
Yeah, I would express myself as somebody that is an entrepreneur. I like to see opportunities and trying to capitalise on them, and I think that has a synergy with politics at the moment. We're seeing opportunities for our areas and for our people, and while Alex and some more of the Dublin TDs talk about how prosperous it is in their part of the world, I'm like a broken record talking about the Southwest and particularly Kerry, but I see potential there. It's not just about the 40,000 jobs that were lost in the Southwest under the previous administration. We've created 10,000 jobs so far for the last 4 years. But my acronym for recovery, and they all start laughing when they hear me talking about TEAM. It's a mindset, but tourism, energy, agribusiness and micro enterprises, and providing facilities through the state to boost those elements of the economy. For example, within tourism, we reduced the VAT rate, which has given a great hospitality sector in Kerry a great boost. The best year last year that we've had in 10 years. The Wild Atlantic Way is becoming a worldwide brand that's attracting people. And for those of you that want to stay a little bit longer in Kerry and spend a few quid more, it's quite beautiful. You'll enjoy it. And then there's other little things like the cycleways. I'm proposing that on a national level, Eurovelo is at a European level, but let's have cycleways where people flying into Dublin, they can cycle to the west and use the beautiful amenities that we
Arthur,
have.
can I ask you something? Yeah. So, I do spend a lot of time going around the country, and I'm always amazed. I'm going to upset half of Ireland now. There are some towns that are incredibly vibrant, and I'm thinking of Westport and Ennis and Dingle, and you go into those towns and they're alive. You can't even get a hotel room. You can't get a booking in a restaurant. Yeah. The place is packed with tourists. And then there are others that are decimated. There's only a charity shop left open. Couldn't we gather those ingredients that those magnet towns seem to have and try and recreate them?
I think we're very conscious of this as a government. I would honestly say that we are obsessed with creating jobs and doing what we can. And Anne Phelan has eloquently spoken about how we're going to condense the information that is necessary. You must look at your core competencies as an area. You must look at your skill set, as Minister Brendan Howland said as well. And you must put your best foot forward.
What does that mean?
Your core competencies in Kerry, as I explained, are tourism, energy, agribusiness, microenterprise. And the skill set that you need to have, you've got an IT inside in Tralee with 3,500 pupils inside it. They shouldn't be produced just for the sake of going out to look for a job. They should be linked up with where the jobs and the markets are going. Previously, this economy became a single-engine economy. It was driven on construction and credit, an absolute fallacy. This is a multi-dimensional economy. It has many platforms, many taxation systems, and I'm enthusiastic about what we're trying to do. We're starting to do things in Kerry as well. We actually got some IDA attention at long last. There's been three places that have been given advanced manufacturing facilities. The Taoiseach's hometown of Castlebar, Tralee and Sligo. And we announced that last week, and that shows that we have identified that the low-hanging fruit was to go back to Dublin and look at the infrastructure that they had and the capacity to create jobs. We can do something down here, and we are the broken record. We're going to do it down here as well.
I'm going to speak to somebody shortly about who got an IDA win. Arthur, what's the name of the juice bar? You call yourself an entrepreneur and you never even sold it.
I don't know. Since I got into this, my wife has probably taken more of a role of it than anything else, but Springs Juice Bar, yeah.
Springs Juice Bar in Tralee. Yeah. We'll head there. So Lorraine Higgins, it's hard to keep the grin off your face. Athenry, and you got that great win with Apple. But to be perfectly honest, there aren't enough wins over in the West, are there? They're all coming to the East Coast, as Arthur said.
Well, this week certainly was a peak for Athenry. 850 million euros of an investment, 300 jobs, and obviously the multiplier effect as well. So I look forward to seeing what's going to happen there.
And you also have construction jobs as well as the technical jobs. So
that's correct. Yeah. That's correct. The thing is, we need to see more apples coming to the orchard of rural Ireland. That's my key priority as a member of the Labour Party. We also need to look at European funds. We have a lot of friends in Europe. We need to make sure that they're working for the benefit of this country. Structural funds, we need to ensure that they're spread right across Ireland, that it's not just the Greater Dublin and the eastern area of the country that benefit. We've the Rural Development Programme coming on stream, which will be absolutely critical to the towns and villages in rural Ireland. Also the CEDRA report, which my colleague Minister Anne Phelan is spearheading, and I'm absolutely confident, Minister, you're going to deliver on that as well. But there are other ways that we can help businesses as well. We need to look at our rates situation. I have business owners come to me and talk to me about the size of the toilets in Tesco and the fact that they have to pay rates which are an inordinate amount of money in small towns like Loughrea, Tuam and Athenry and East Galway, and that's very difficult for families who are dependent on that kind of square footage.
Just go back to, we talked about the IDA and the fact that, you're very lucky you got the Apple win. How do you put it down to the multinationals themselves, not understanding perhaps the benefits of moving to an area like Athenry, or do you think the IDA could do more?
Well, multinationals look at the infrastructure that's in place, and something I'm very passionate about was structural funds that was supposed to come to Ireland, or has actually come to Ireland rather, but the West didn't benefit through the 10T funding in Europe. If we're not going to be building roads and ensuring that our airports stay open, if we're not going to ensure that things like sewage treatment plants in towns aren't available, we're not going to be able to deal with the capacity for these multinational companies. But as I said, this is just one part of it.
Against the sale of Aer Lingus?
I am absolutely against the sale of Aer Lingus.
Okay. Yeah, I do, William.
As an island nation, it's very important that we do have connectivity to the world, and I don't think that we should be giving that control or ceding it to anybody else. But the reality is, Free parking is a big issue that's coming up on the doorstep all the time amongst business owners. We need to move to a French model where there's defined periods of free parking in towns throughout Ireland, and I certainly would like to see that happen. We saw the benefits in Athenry and Loughrea and Antingort in the run-up to Christmas, where people had a number of hours free on a daily basis, and it encouraged people to shop in the towns.
William, can I move to you? William Quinn, by-election candidate for Carlin Kilkenny. So when I looked at your background, you're just such a strong community man. In Borris, you're all over every aspect of the community there. So you know exactly what it feels like to create the kind of environment that's going to get that town thriving again. So what is it? What's the solution?
I suppose the one thing that I'm really disappointed in is the amount of visits that the IDA have come to Carlow, Kilkenny over the last number of years. I think that's something we have to seriously look at. Certainly, I mean, we are in the home of tourism here in Killarney, and I know there's other parts of the country who have the same potential. Even down in the southeast, in Carlow, Kilkenny, we have massive potential there for tourism. And it's just to get the message out there that Carlow, Kilkenny, and the whole southeast region is open for business, and that's what we need to do. But the other thing there is that I'm a great believer in apprenticeships. I've worked in the construction industry since 1977. And I've seen some of the great, say, the steelworks companies that have been there down along the country. Most of them are closed down now, And one of the last jobs that I was involved in with a company in Carlow was the Millennium Bridge. And when you see the craftspeople that worked on that, I mean, there were welders and there were fitters. Them trades are nearly dying out now, and that's a very sad tale. Because we don't have the young people to take up these jobs, and that's where the investment in for the younger people in the, as regards the apprenticeships. We need to learn these people these trades again, so that we can continue. Because otherwise, we're going to be important.
Because that's exactly the point actually that you were making earlier on, Alex White. But also, could you pick up on an issue which drives me crazy? For all our great, infrastructure in Ireland, broadband. Yeah. I have been going, look, all of my colleagues in Cork, and I was coming down here. When I was in New Zealand, they gave the mobile licence only to people who could cover both islands of New Zealand and a mile around the outside, so that people who were fishing could also use them. Yeah. I couldn't use my mobile phone now. Coming from Dublin to Killarney, you couldn't.
Well, I think it picks up on what each of the three speakers have said, Arthur, Lorraine and William. That, when Arthur talked about the team, his 4 different sectors, digital is at the heart of each one of the 4 that he mentioned. Lorraine also, what Apple have done, looking also at their, by the way, their really progressive energy policy, which I think is a really important dimension of what Apple has done. And then William, I should say, makes the point about jobs, traditional jobs that have faded away, and that he would hope should be, reconstructed. The point is, I think he's right. We do need to go back, in many cases, to those trades where we have a recovering construction industry. But more than that, we have to look to the new digital world and the new digital economy we're in. And we won't do that without broadband. We won't do that without broadband
because,
everywhere.
There was this wriggle thing where they said percentage of the country, but it was percentage of the population. So Dublin and Leinster got most of the
premises. So 70% of homes and premises, including businesses, will be covered by the private sector
the geographical map.
In 2016. No. The numbers of homes and businesses, actual structures and buildings. The geographical map, I mean, it could, because because there are a lot of very remote areas in Ireland, and because we have a spread out population, the fact is, if you look at the map in terms of the actual physical split of the map, that's different from the issue of where people are actually living. But we'll do that. The private sector are putting $2.5 billion into broadband. Like Eircom and ESB Vodafone, we mentioned them earlier, the apprenticeships. That's happening in 2016, which is next year. And then the state will go in and provide it for the balance, the 30% of the country,
but would you accept
so that
it's the
everybody can have
block?
the same. I absolutely accept it's the biggest block. Brendan will tell you, I'm banging away about this. It is the single biggest thing that we've got to do for rural Ireland, in fact for the whole country, to have reliable broadband. Not just a bit here and a bit there and throw up wireless. Well, I mean, there are a lot of very good wireless companies, don't get me wrong before I'm shot. But the fact is, really high quality broadband into every region and every home and every farm in the country, every single premise in the country. And we're not a huge country. This is possible for us to do. Lorraine mentioned European money. I think that we can leverage really good funding in Europe. European Investment Bank, the new Juncker money. I've been talking to Brendan about this. We've put together a package of funding for this to make sure that we can actually, that the digital revolution doesn't pass us by. I mean, that would be the big risk.
And
because
my
we've
fellow
missed-
Dragons coming back into Ireland,
Yeah.
and especially the Americans going into Cork, they couldn't believe the
I know.
issues around broadband.
But there's no, well, you know, I'll just make one point. I mean, I talk to a lot of ministers in Europe. We're behind, but, you know, there's a lot of work that has to be done in other European countries as well. Sometimes we
I'm gonna
overplay
bring
that
Arthur
point.
in.
But
He's
it is
nodding
critical,
behind you.
absolutely critical.
Arthur.
Yeah, we need broadband so badly. You've met with people.
He's
in
right behind you, Alex. I know
Yeah,
that.
and
Thanks,
I
Arthur.
have a big fist as well. But you've met people in Dingle, you've met people in Tralee as well, and there is a creativity, as our President Michael D will tell us, amongst the people of this country, and for people that want to be creative, they want to live in beautiful parts of the country, such as Kerry, and the digital media spectrum is what we need to get back to, and Alex is fully aware of that, and in case he's not, I'm telling you one more time, and Minister Howland there, who has the checkbook, and as the country and the economy at macro level improves, you might
They're
give him a few
name-checking you
more
all
quid
the
for
time,
that
Mr.
as well,
Howland.
so thanks.
And Jack, I suppose just a final word to you. I think, you know, issues around broadband and the digital economy, a lot of your, you know, I hear from graduates who leave and they want to come back and maybe relocate in a rural area where they came from and their families, but they're being forced perhaps to go into Dublin and the bigger urban areas.
Well, I mean, I think that's always been a problem. There has been far too much emphasis on Dublin in I mean, I'm from Dublin, but in every sense in our country's history, like it is, I don't know any other country that really has a comparable situation where it's something that so dominates the economic life of the country. Well, that's it. It's worse than that.
Sorry, Minister. Final few moments.
Broadband is a very big issue for me, trying to deal with the rural communities, and I have Alex absolutely tormented about rural broadband. I think he's
Good job, you've good broadband, so you can email him.
But I think also another infrastructure that perhaps is not being talked about as much. We need a big investment in water infrastructure if we're going to attract jobs. We have the Glanbia plant down in the Bellevue port, which is in the port of Waterford, but which is technically in Kilkenny. And we attracted that plant because of the investment that Kilkenny County Council, in conjunction with Waterford, put in for water infrastructure. So it's not just about broadband, it's about putting in water infrastructure as well. So, you know, the Labour Party and Minister Alan Kelly is very much behind that, but that point has to be very
Thank you,
stressed.
Minister. And we're going to be hearing from Alan Kellan shortly. That was quite a wide-ranging conversation. Of course it was, because it's on economic growth, it's on job creation. I'm going to pick on somebody up here who's going to wrap up the panel. But keep your tweets coming, those of you in the hall, as well as those of you at home. Our hashtag is LP15. Can't think of anybody better, actually, other than Minister Brendan Howland. Maybe you do the honours, would you?
Sure.
Thank you.
If I can. I think you want me to do it from here, because they're going to clear the panel as we do this. I want to say a few things first. The last 40 minutes has been a team of people looking at the problems of our country and finding solutions. An awful lot of what has gone on outside this building and across our country in the last number of months has been screaming in an angry fashion, but not providing solutions. If we could bottle the energy, the enthusiasm and the capacity that is evident in our party, we will find the solutions and are finding the solutions. I know that one of the things that have compounded our recovery has been the indifferent capacity of our trading partners, with the exception of the United Kingdom and the United States, who actually have allowed us to grow if we were dependent on the Eurozone. And the great irony is, one of the criticisms of the European Commission of Ireland is one of the weaknesses they've discerned is the lack of capacity in the Eurozone itself. We've overcome all this, despite a worse environment than we could possibly expect over the last 4 years. Both the breadth and the pace of our recovery have been spectacular. But that's not an end in itself, as every member of the panel you've just heard has underscored. The first step was fixing the numbers, balancing our budget so that we had a sustainable platform to build upon. The next step is to ensure that we have a social dividend for all of that. We talked about the issue of regional development. Before the summer, every area will have its own bespoke regional development strategy, as Anne Phelan has said. We have transformed, as I've said, the Department of Social Protection into a department of job facilitation. We've created Solace as a skills base, transformed the education and training boards to reach out into their own communities and go well beyond the traditional sectors that they've worked on to provide the capacity of workers to meet the skills that are needed in their community. Critical to the social recovery has been economic recovery. That's why what we have done for the last 4 years is so pivotal and so critical. But when you just reflect upon the economy that we inherited and reflect on where we are now, bluntly, it is miraculous how far we've come so quickly. Sure, we have real problems identified by Labour speakers in the last 40 minutes, but we also have Labour solutions to that. We will continue on the path of providing those solutions, and then in a few short months or 12 months or so, we'll ask people to give us the endorsement to continue on that path, to have sustained real recovery that impacts on every family and every household in this country.